I'm in the mood for something that I haven't done a video on yet, some good kebabs. So today I'm going to show you how I make my Mediterranean beef and chicken kebabs. First thing we need to do is get the seasoning ready for these kebabs. Now both are going to use the exact same seasoning, and it's a mixture of 5 easy ingredients. We've got 5 tablespoons of dried oregano, not the powder, the flaky kind. We have 3 tablespoons of fresh rosemary or rosemary flakes. 2 tablespoons of granulated garlic. 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper. And half a teaspoon of ground sea salt. Now we're just going to mix this together gently and lightly. It doesn't have to be 100% incorporated. You've got rosemary sprigs in there. They're not going to get totally mixed up. We just want to even this mixture out so that when we distribute it between the beef and the chicken, everybody gets a fair share. This has such an amazing scent coming off of it already with these dried herbs and everything. Oh. There we go, our seasoning mixture's all ready. Time to move on to cubing up the chicken and the beef. The first thing I'm going to work on here is the chicken. Now this chicken is partially frozen. It's been thawing out, but at this stage it makes it much easier to kind of get precise cubing out of it. So it still has a little bit of that frozen resistance in it. Not much, but a little bit. So I'm cutting that into about inch sections to begin with. These are boneless half chicken breasts I'm working with here. Just going to cut these into big cubes. Just like that size, 1 inch or a little bit larger. Second chicken breast done, let's move on to our beef component. For our beef today, we're going to be using tri-tip. This is about a 2.5 pound tri-tip. I'm going to be cubing this up, and just so you know, I washed my knife, so we're not transferring chicken juice to beef. So let's start breaking this down. Doing a similar thing that we did to the chicken. Then we're just going to work our way through these sections and cube them up. Look at that nice marbling in this tri-tip. You don't want the pieces too small. You want to have enough meat there so it can cook a little bit slower. We're not going to incinerate this quickly. And if you find any pieces of big hunks of fat or silver skin, you can trim them off at this point. Here's our pile of beef that's cubed up tri-tip, and now it's time to get this and the chicken marinating in some olive oil and the seasonings. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to drizzle about 3 tablespoons of olive oil over this beef. Now I'm going to add that seasoning mixture. You kind of have to eyeball it unless you've divided it perfectly into 2 parts because we need that other part for the chicken. Just going to sprinkle it over this and work it around. Make sure everybody gets some oil on them. Sprinkle some more. Keep working it around. I'm using this flat Pyrex dish just so you can see what I'm doing. You could do it in a bowl. And our last sprinkle of seasoning. Just keep working that around. Now I'm going to transfer this to a plastic bag, a Ziploc bag, put it in the refrigerator, and it'll keep marinating for about 6 hours until we grill it tonight. You could do this the day ahead and let this marinate overnight. That'd give it even more penetration. But 6 hours I've found is generally good enough to get a good amount of this flavor in here from the seasoning and the olive oil. You'll notice I put the chicken right in the same container that I just did the beef in. I'm not concerned about transferring beef to chicken, more concerned about transferring chicken to beef. Chicken takes longer to cook. You need to get it to a higher temperature to be safe, about 160, 165. Beef we can take down to anywhere between 130 and 140. So you don't want to have chicken on your beef. Beef on your chicken's okay because you're going to cook it to a higher temperature. So let's drizzle a little olive oil on here, same as before, probably only about 2 tablespoons this time. Get that oil massaged on there. Start adding our seasoning. Chicken sometimes takes a little more seasoning than beef. It's a little more resistant to that penetration. That's why it can take longer or more seasoning. Olive oil does help though. In fact, let's just dump the rest. Just like the beef, this is going to go into a plastic bag in the refrigerator for about 6 hours. It's going to marinate, flavors are going to penetrate. It's going to be some good kebabs tonight. Our chicken is ready. I'm going to get it in the refrigerator, and in about 6 hours, I'll bring you back when we head outside and grill up these kebabs. All right, our beef and chicken have been marinating for just over 6 hours. The Weber Kettle's coming up to temp. We're going to get these on the skewers and get them out there on the grill. So you can see here, I've got the beef. We're going to do our beef skewers first because it's okay for some of that beef juice to get on chicken, but it's not a great idea for chicken juice to get on beef. Different cooking temperatures that we're going for with those. So I've got one of my skewers here for the beef, and you're saying, what's wrong with that skewer? It's all bent. You're right. It's bent like this so it can go around the vortex in the Weber Kettle. So I'm going to be putting the beef on here, and I'm going to be putting onion in between as sort of a spacer. Of course, we can eat the onion too, but it just helps give a little bit of space between these beef chunks. Some of them are still going to touch. Not a big deal. Just got to make sure they're cooked through to the doneness you want. We're also going to try and knock off some of these bigger pieces of rosemary. We're not going to be doing any real direct grilling, so they won't be burning, but if you can knock them off, that's fine. If a few stragglers hang on, it's not a big deal. This marinade smells amazing on these. One of the reasons I like using tri-tip for kebabs is it really handles a lower internal temperature cook, so you can take it to 130 degrees and it's going to taste great, just that sort of medium rare. Now I'm using tri-tip here. You can use any meat that works for skewers that you want. You could use a sirloin, you could use a top round for like a London broil. If you're using a piece of meat like top round, which is marketed as London broil, it's a little tougher, it takes a little longer, so you want to marinate this potentially overnight, help it break down a little bit first. There's our first skewer of beef. I'm going to get the others ready and then I'll bring you back when we're doing the chicken. All right, time to skewer our chicken, and we're going to be using some green bell pepper to space these out. Once again, we're knocking off some of the rosemary pieces as we go along. There's our first skewer of chicken. I'm going to get the other one ready, and then I'll meet you outside at the Weber Kettle. All right, the Weber Kettle is running at about 440 degrees, perfect. We've got the Vortex going in there. Let's get these skewers on so we can make our kebabs. So I have the Vortex going, and it's about a little over half full of briquettes. So once we get these skewers on there and that lid on, these are going to cook great indirect. Our chicken is going to go closest to the Vortex because it will take longer to cook. Okay, let's get our lid on. We're going to check them in about 10 minutes. Okay, we're just at about 10 minutes. Kettle temp's still running about 450. And we're going to want to give these a turn. The way I'm going to do that is just flip them over in the same spot. Good grill gloves really help here. Why am I turning them when this is indirect? Because the steel body of that Vortex radiates heat out underneath. You can actually see the grill marks from what I'm talking about, how that heat radiates out from the steel body of the Vortex and comes up under the meat, in addition to that heat going straight up, hitting the dome and coming back down. So let's get our lid back on. Keep them cooking. Check them again in about 8 minutes this time. All right, let's see how these are doing. It's been another 8 minutes. Let's do a little internal temperature check here. Let's get some of the beef. That beef is done. Let's check some chicken. Chicken might have a few more minutes to go. Let's check over here. Yep, we're gonna give the chicken about 5 more minutes, but the beef is done. It's coming off. Let's get our lid back on here. Let that chicken finish up for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna give the chicken a quick turn. We're about halfway through that extra 5 minutes here. Let's get our lid back on for those last 2.5 minutes. Okay, I adjusted those one more time in the middle of that short span. Let's check them again. Looking good. We are good. All right, let's get these off and get them inside and have a taste. Here we have our kebabs taken off the skewers. We have beef on each side. We have chicken in the middle. One of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit the chicken with a little bit of lemon juice. I know some people marinate the chicken with some lemon juice. For 6 hours, that's quite a long time with lemon juice. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit the beef with a little bit of sea salt. I like to under-season in the seasoning that we're putting in with the marinade and adjust that at the end because you can really overdo it on salt. And I took a little taste, needs a slight amount of salt, so we're just gonna do a little bit of a sea salt grind here. And it is time to taste. All right, I've decided I'm going for the chicken first. Nice big hunk of chicken here. Let's see how it is. Oh, I love rosemary with chicken. Oh man. Giving the chicken those 6 hours to accept that marinade and all these seasonings really works. Also, that chicken really benefits from the indirect cooking. You're not just throwing it directly over coals and basically charring it to try and cook it. You give it that indirect time to cook a little more slowly on there. That chicken took 23 minutes on the grill out there with the Vortex cooking indirect. The beef took about 15, so you can see the difference in what you're gonna have to plan for. If you're doing them directly over coals, much different story. This way though, tenderness, juiciness, and flavor without being burned. Now it's time for the beef. Nice big piece of tri-tip here. Oh wow. That little hit of salt at the end was the right thing to do, balanced out the flavor. Rosemary on here, very good, but really honestly what I taste is the pepper and the oregano. Oh wow. That is really good. The same thing applies to the beef here. Tri-tip is something that you can sear quickly. You can cook it like a steak almost. I mean, you've seen me cook tri-tip if you've watched any of my videos. I like doing it a little bit more slow and indirect. Same thing here. You've got cubes of tri-tip. You cook them indirect. You give them just that little bit of extra time to cook, to absorb the flavors, to not overcook quickly and get too charred if you throw it right over the charcoal. And this is what you get. Really came out medium rare. It's probably hard to see there. A nice little pink center on these cubes. Just the way I want it. I like my tri-tip that way. If you want it cooked more, you can cook it longer. You can even cook it less. This is just right for me. As I said at the beginning of the video, these are my Mediterranean kebabs. You can do them any flavor you want. You can do Mexican kebabs, use some cumin, some chili powders. The flavor profile is really up to you. Really what works here is giving it a little bit of indirect time so they don't overcook quickly and dry out, which is what can really happen if you're cooking skewers, kebabs, things like that. You just throw them over the coals and they char on the outside. Give them that indirect time to cook a little more slowly. Results speak for themselves. Now you'll notice I didn't add any smoke flavor to any of these. I could have, but it really is such a short amount of time that if I wanted to get some smoke flavor out of this, I would probably have to use a very intense wood. something like a mesquite, maybe hickory, but it's such a short time, you're not gonna get a lot of smoke flavor. I'm not saying you wouldn't get any smoke flavor, but that's not what I was shooting for today. I was shooting for tenderness and taste. That's what I got. This beef and chicken from these Mediterranean kebabs would go great with some rice pilaf, some pita bread, some hummus, some tzatziki. If you had a different flavor profile, you could adjust it for that. You could make tacos out of it if you were going for a Mexican seasoning. Really tailor this to yourself and just enjoy. Oh, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out some of the other videos on my channel and consider subscribing. And if you do, click that bell for notifications. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great evening. I'll see you again soon.